only country in the world, or the only region in the world that talks about globalization is North America, because we're not integrated. Okay? That's CFR talking, right? And what they're talking about is a fortress North America where we become much more integrated, like Asia or Europe. The United States has a trade surplus with Canada, not a deficit. Okay, dude? Dude, I know you're sitting there at the poker table with a 3 and a 6 offsuit. Do you understand? This is the basic question that the Council of Foreign Relations and O'Brien, they bring up. There should be an integrated supply chain, and let's figure out what the United States wants to do, right? And where can Canada fit in and Mexico fit in to make these products? What Mr. Trump is doing is what the CFR talked about. It's talked about previously. It needs to get done. I've been advocating for it. I don't disagree with it.
Watching Capital Cause, and my name is Danny. Today's guest is Jim Thorne. Jim, thank you so much for coming back on the show, my friend.
Nice to see you again, Danny.
Yeah, let's just dive right in, Jim. What is most topical for you right now? What is the top story on your radar screen as we speak today? It is January 15th, 2025.
The death of liberalism. That's what we're dealing with. We are moving as we move into the inauguration of President Trump. I do not think, my thesis is that we are about to see a massive, profound change in what's going on in the way that we view things in economics and in finance. And the fancy term, Danny, is the Overton window. The OVERTON, the Overton window is shifting from the extreme left back to the center. We are moving away from an economy and a financial market that is in love with Keynesian economics. And we are moving back to the center where Milton Friedman, James Buchanan, Ayn Rand, Hayek, right? We're moving back to a libertarian small government, deregulation, tax cuts, innovation. This is the big change. And in these types of changes, we get the projection. Think about what's happening with the Fed and Wall Street, where we're saying that these are extreme moves. Mr. Trump, his economic policy is extreme. Well, Danny, let's read the room. His cabinet are all moderate Democrats, right? So my whole thing is, look, we're going into and this is no different than Reagan getting in 1980, in the 80s. It's that profound. And so the thing that I anchor my hat on, or anchor my narrative on, is that Trump is not that extreme. He's moderate. So the concerns about his policies being inflationary, and his concerns about his policies not being deficit friendly, completely bunk, right? But that's okay. Let Wall Street and the sell side and the newsletter writers that are other directed, is the term we use, go on with this old narrative, and we will position ourselves completely different.
So when you say the death of liberalism and a move to the center, many people would say that, Hayek, Ayn Rand, these kind of philosophies espoused by these thinkers and authors would be more so on the right wing. How do you respond to that? How do you square the circle there?
My suggestion to you is the embrace by the progressive left of modern monetary theory, an extreme version of Keynes, is the extreme economic policy, right? Even the father of modern monetary theory, Mosler, says that his theory has been hijacked. We have experienced the largest ramp up in deficit spending and debt to GDP in an era that has not been wartime. And you're sitting there telling me, with Yellen and Bernard and Biden sitting there saying that Trump is extreme? Harris ran arguably the most fiscally irresponsible presidential campaign, and we are projecting that Trump is the one who's fiscally irresponsible? What I do, Danny, is you get older and you lose your hair. Like 30 years ago, I'd be banging my head against the wall. I look at this as a huge opportunity. The majority, the consensus has no clue what is going on. Thank God, because we can provide value by actually looking at this in a historical context. And if Wall Street wants to say that Milton Friedman is an extreme economic policy, small government is extreme, if Milton Friedman and his deficit reduction is extreme, all day long I will take the other side of the trade. And Danny, that's what Wall Street's talking about right now. You want to give your money to these people to manage? God bless you. You're dealing with the dumb money at the table.
Yeah, totally. And you see this exemplified in something like Meta, with Zuckerberg opening Meta up. A lot of these same pundits are saying that Meta is trending right, but it's really just a return to neutrality, right? You know, after like 5-6 years of leftist bias, where they had leftist fact checkers and everything like that, a rightward shift would indicate that they would hire rightward fact checkers, but they're just dismantling the entire fact checker platform in totality. It's actually a return to neutrality. To your point there, it's a return to centrism.
It is net neutrality. Everybody forgot about this. Where this all started to get supercharged is when Obama got into power. It's not Trump, it's Obama, right? And when you start going back, and here's the thing, Danny, when you start guys like Musk and Mark Andreessen and Vivek and all these guys from Silicon Valley, hey, I'm just telling you what the smart kids in the room are talking about. This might, for your listeners, might be profound. All I'm trying to say to you, stop listening to the dumb money. The cool kids and the smart kids get what's going on, right? Net neutrality. I mean, why is Zuckerberg doing what he's doing, right? Think about it. He put Dana White on his board, right? I mean, and you think Trump is an extreme? Really? That's your play, right? Okay, I take the other side of the trade. And I'm in the company. I want to hang out with the cool kids in class. I want to hang out with the smart kids at the cafeteria. I don't want to hang out with the people that don't know it. You know, Danny, I keep saying to you that there's 3 groups of people. And it's a preface on a philosophical statement. There are those that make things happen. There are those that watch things happen. And then there are those, the majority of people continually say, what the heck just happened? Okay, what's our objective here? Let's get your viewers into at least watch things happen and not the listen to mainstream media and Wall Street. And because what will happen is people will sit there and go, what the heck just happened? Dude, rates are down today. I mean, how much longer are we going to, CPI came out. Oh, guess what? Surprise. It's all shelter. Okay, it's all shelter. Hey, Danny, 3rd year macro, right? Fed rate hikes are inflationary. That's profound. I'm non-consensus. I'm giving you 3rd year macro. Hey, Danny, tariffs aren't inflationary. That's 3rd year macro. Even Waller, who is the uber hawk on the Fed, has to come out and says that tariffs aren't inflationary. Okay, that's basic economics. Now listen to all of my competition on Wall Street say, oh my God, look at the Fed notes or the minutes. The risk we have as investors, and I mean this honestly, is that there is a majority of people that are on the FOMC, on the Fed, could not pass a midterm exam in macroeconomics. They should not be making interest rate decisions. When we get somebody on the Supreme Court, they have to be at least an expert in constitutional law. We have people making interest rate decisions that have undergraduate degrees in advertising and an MBA, or a classics degree and trading expertise. And even Goolsbee comes out and says the thing out loud, right? And you go, let's talk about the natural rate of interest. Okay. The dude that wrote the theory on that is a guy named Knut Wicksell, Swedish economist. Do you know what he says? He says that when there is an increase in productivity, the natural rate of interest declines. Rstar declines. Goolsbee goes on to CNBC and repeats that, and the Fed, Steve Leisman's head blows off. I've been saying this for 3 years. It's in the New York Fed's natural rate of interest model, right? And yet you have Fed voting members saying that Rstar is 4.5%, is increasing. They are sitting there concerned that Trump's policies on tariffs are inflationary. You failed that question. And then they're sitting there saying the immigration policy of Trump is going to be inflationary. I don't know, Danny. You have somebody come across the border, you gave them a $5,000 prepaid card, you give them an airline ticket, and then they go to New York City and they stay in a hotel room. Do you think maybe the hotel owner jacks up the rates because the government's paying for that hotel room? Hey, guess what, Danny? Where does that flow through to CPI? It's called rent. Oh, wow. What's the largest contributor to CPI? Rent. Oh my gosh. This is basic economics. And if Wall Street doesn't get this, now you can sit there and say what you want about it. But what I'm sitting there going, this is a massive opportunity to go back, open up your midterm, your third year macro textbook, and just look at it. So your viewers might say I'm profound. No, I'm sitting there going, there's a lot of dumb money saying a lot of things, right? Let's look at the jobs number. Here's the lesson I learned, right? Let me ask you a question. Should exogenous shock, another basic economic question, should exogenous shocks be treated like seasonal adjustments? Yes or no? And the answer is no. But yet the BLS, every time there's an exogenous shock, they adjust their seasonal adjustments to take into consideration the exogenous shock. The first time I experienced this was 9/11. 18 months after 9/11, all of the economic data was revised away. And the world that we lived in after 9/11, Danny, was basically whitewashed. It was, it was just completely and totally scrubbed, right? They did the same thing with COVID. Dude, non-seasonally adjusted data. Okay? Non-seasonally adjusted data. A decline of 350,000 full-time jobs. So when you talk to your viewers, when you listen to some strategist or economist from Wall Street hang their hats on seasonally adjusted data coming out of a global generational exogenous shock, it's a dumb money. Now you'll sit there and go, oh, you're making this stuff up. Okay, well, let's look at the census data. Census data in the labor market, what does it do? It actually takes information from companies. The problem with the census data is it's so lagged. Okay, right? You had like an 850,000 revision to the labor market in August. Okay, and then what was the response of the Fed? A 50 basis point cut. Danny, they just did the last quarter that came in. The revisions are going to be worse coming forward. They know this. The Philadelphia Fed prints a number that are saying that this is the largest divergence. Okay? You have that coming to you. Danny, the December numbers on the Labor Day, the largest seasonal adjustments ever. Ever. So where are all the masters of the universe in Twitterverse and the pundits and in Wall Street actually rolling up their sleeves and looking at this? What do you get? They go on to mainstream TV And they basically said, oh, the job number's strong, 250,000. And they go, yada, 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 yada. Right? You really think the smart money buys this? You think that the stuff I'm telling you right now is unique? No. Smart money doesn't, so I say that to your viewers and you because we've known each other, but man, it's what is the term I use? There are so many people that don't know what they don't know.
So what is the smart money? What are insiders forecasting ahead?
Well, look, the Fed's going to have to bring rates. Goolsbee talks about it, right? I mean, look, when you objectively look at the data and take out the noise, the Fed has achieved its dual mandate, which means that it should be at Rstar right now. And even though it would try to get to Rstar right now, they know that if they did it right now, they could, that they would basically, it would take 18 months, at least 18 months, for that drop in rates to work through into Main Street, right?
The lag effect.
The lag effect, which Main Street economists, take a look, completely and totally ignore. Okay? So we're going to have a growth scare, dude. Right? How do you basically, we're going to have growth is going to dramatically decline. What we don't know, known unknowns, right? Just look at China. Right? The rates are free falling. They are basically, money supply growth is starting to turn from negative to positive. They are starting to pump in China, right? We're working our way towards quantitative easing. We are working our way towards another financial crisis. The Federal Reserve has not learned their messages. Wall Street, like they were in 2007, is going to completely and totally miss this trade. They missed the global financial crisis. They're going to miss this one as well. So the smart money is trying to sit there and go, and this is the question. And what I would say to you guys, to your viewers, like I'm up here in Toronto, right? So look at Canada as a microcosm, right? Tiff Macklin up here has significantly cut interest rates, right? Significantly. He's been aggressive. There has been no response to the labor. There has been no response to the real estate market, and we're having a hard landing. And unemployment is 6.7%. The risk is, and I would suggest to you the Fed, my thing to you, Danny, is I think Powell knows what Powell is herding cats. Okay, Powell knows what's going on. Goolsbee knows what's going on. Waller knows what's going on. I don't think anybody else in the Fed has a clue. They don't know what they don't know. So the risk you have in all of this is we get, soft landing in the U.S. turns into a hard landing in 2026. That is the known unknown that people are trying to figure out. But by the back half of the year, the Fed is going to be aggressively cutting rates. And all of these guys on Wall Street are going to go, oh my God, who would have known? Right? Right. And they'll change the PowerPoint presentation. And those people that listen to these people are the dumb money at the poker table. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
And in this case, what is Rstar? I believe it's 2.5 to 2.75%.
And the New York Fed's model says real Rstar is 74 basis points.
Okay.
So if we get to the target, if you take out shelter, right, which is going to go away and normalize, CPI is like 1.617, right? So let's just assume CPI is 2. It's like 275, real, okay? And that's where we're going. And then what we should do, and this is fair because I'm not, the Fed, if we could do it in a perfect world, the Fed should get to 275 and then stop. And if you can't afford your house with Fed funds rates at 275, then you shouldn't buy that house, right? And then let the private sector allocate capital. This goes back to what I told you about going back to the center. Let's get, think about it. Greenspan was a follower of Ayn Rand. Okay. And, it was when Bernanke got in that the Keynesianism really started. Biden getting in and embracing with Yellen modern monetary theory that says deficits don't matter. I don't know. Hey, mainstream media has woken up to the fact that maybe deficits do matter. If I hear one more person talk about the bond vigilantes, well, where the hell were the bond vigilantes 4 years ago when Biden cranked up the modern monetary theorem, right? The hypocrisy that is existing on Wall Street is thick right now. Okay, where are they? Right? What are you know what? Now Trump is going to come in and apply a Milton Friedman libertarian centrist point of view of small government and private sector driving the growth and the private sector allocating capital, right? And that's extreme, Danny. That's extreme. Meanwhile, deficits don't matter. It's up here. Trudeau, right? He's out the door. He on record numerous times. I don't care about deficits. That's why I say to you, liberalism is dead. What's interesting, smart kids get this. Tom Friedman, the world is flat, says that. Go onto his Twitter feed. Right there, the Overton window. This is what they're talking about. It's shifting back to the center, right? And I would suggest to you that in 16 months, you're going to have some guy write a book who's basically going to say, we all should have known that modern monetary theory and Keynesianism was extreme. You know what I mean? For me and what we do at Wellington, these are the conversations we have with our clients when we allocate capital. Now, here's the point, Dan. You may not agree with my point of view, and that's fair. And that's what the Overton window is all about. When you go back to the center, I had a conversation with somebody about this before, is in the old days, like, for example, let's use COVID as an example, right? And what happened during that time. We went to a period of time where you and I could not question science. And if we did not, and think about what Galileo did. It's the same thing, right? Galileo said something that went against the norm, accepted scientific dogma, and he was labeled an extreme, right? Well, if you sit there, what science is about questioning theories. Right. And so I have no problem with you disagreeing with me. Right. You agree with Keynesianism. Great. I think we've gone too far. I think we should go back to private sector, allocating capital in the business cycle that is not basically tainted by the Fed. Now, you and I can argue about that. That's fine. But Danny, what I don't want and what we shouldn't have is I'm going to label you as an extreme. And you're going to label me an extreme. That's what we're going to go back to, right? Actually sitting down and talking about these things, right? Actually going down and sitting and saying, debt to GDP of 126%, I think, Danny, is extreme. I think 40% of GDP growth in the United States that is determined by the government is extreme. I think that when you get back to the norm of 25 to 26%, there's going to be a growth pocket, a growth scare. I don't know. That's what I think. And you may disagree. Just don't label me as extreme. And that's what I think that's what we're going to move back to. And you can see the left freak. Dude, we've had to listen to these folks tell us that the Phillips curve was legit in the earlier side. They haven't gone away. These are high profile Keynesianism. People that are trying to rewrite history, just like Harris was trying to distance herself from Biden and say, I wasn't in control of the border. There are significant high-profile people, I'm not going to name them, who said the supply chains would never be fixed. We have permanent inflation, and it's caused by wage growth. All right? And I'm not going to say it publicly, but there's a list of them. And I would say to you, if you and I are sitting in a room and we're serious about allocating capital and we are objective analysts, right? Which a lot of people are, right? They are what they are, right? But when they come back on TV and they try to rewrite history, it's comical. It's absolutely comical. And what does media do? They don't call them on it, do they? No. Right? So, but that's okay. Right? This is so this is, okay, there's my rant. But Danny, let's think about this. How do we make money?
That's my next point. That's my next point. What is the Trump trade? And just quick disclaimer, guys, I am not a Keynesian. This is all hypothetical exercise on the part of
I know.
Jim here. Yeah, I'm just messing with you, Jim. Yeah, but what is the Trump trade going forward, given everything you've laid out?
So it be really simple. Really simple. The only way out of this mess is productivity growth. Okay, the only way out is productivity growth. That's your economic answer, right? The only way out of this mess is to grow in a non-inflationary environment. What stocks facilitate the solution to the problem? Okay, so interest rates are going to go down. Let's assume the Fed is going to get a soft landing. Then what's going to happen? Well, it's innovation. It's secular growth. Right? I'm sorry, it's the Mag 7. What do I like now? I love Tesla right now because we're moving from the infrastructure phase of AI to the application phase. I still love NVIDIA, but NVIDIA is 7% of the S&P 500. The big money's already been made in NVIDIA. Where's the outsized gains? Tesla, Palantir. I love Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin and blockchain are going to be big. You want to go down a rabbit hole? Look at Choke Point 2.0. Look at how the Fed, don't tell me the Fed is politically neutral. Have your viewers go down the rabbit hole of Choke Point 2.0 and how everybody in the crypto space was unbanked, right?
What is it really? What's the TLDR version of Choke Point 2.0?
Beg your pardon?
What's the footnotes version of Choke Point 2.0?
There was concerted efforts by Wall Street and Washington, D.C. to hamper the natural evolutionary process of blockchain technology. Does anybody notice that the head of supervision that was the point man for this just resigned? Dude, we're walking into the cafeteria, right? Will you guys just stop and read the room? Like, this isn't cold fusion. Right? Right? So the Fed has been caught. Right? I mean, you've got Mark Andreessen talking about Elizabeth Warren's, constitutionally Consumer Finance Protection Agency, which is an independent agency that is financed by the Fed. That's unconstitutional. What's happening? Right? So all of a sudden, Trump gets in and all of a sudden you're going to get full information and transparency. Right?
So
the woulda, shoulda, coulda crowd's going to come out.
He did flirt with the idea of ending the IRS a few months back before the election. And now, just as of yesterday, he sent out a Truth Social post talking about how he wants to start the external revenue, I guess ERS would be called. What do you make of that? Do we see an end of the IRS and have it supplemented with the ERS in this case, where I guess it would collect revenue from tariffs and things of that nature from abroad? What do you make of that?
Well, I really think what Mr. Trump is trying to do, like he did with Space Force, is to introduce new, shall we say, government agencies that have not been politically tainted and that have not been politically weaponized.
That are deeply entrenched with bureaucrats that are against.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to say this diplomatically, right?
Yeah,
and I think what's going to happen is with Kash Patel and all these guys, I don't think there's going to be any witch hunt. I just think what's going to happen is they're going to basically, it's going to be full transparency. Nothing's going to be redacted. Do you know what I mean? And then if those that want to go do the research, I don't think there's anything there. Then the powerful thing about free speech and social media and what Elon has done is, I don't think anything that has going to be revealed is, for those of us that have done the research and read the breadcrumbs, there's going to be nothing revelatory in this data. But it's going to be out there for people that listen to The View for their worldview. Right. And there are institutions and there are shows in business finance that are doing the same thing as The View does, taking the democratic status quo point of view. Right. And that's fine. My job is to make money. Right. So, but if you're sitting there and going, if a tree falls in the forest, I mean, I don't know, having the head of supervision resign from the Federal Reserve, which is that's like Daniel Torrillas working in the States for 20 years in a bank. That is like the most important, powerful position of the Fed. The dude has to resign and nobody talks about it. I find that odd. Right? But everybody else goes skirts along.
What's your best guess?
On what?
As to why he resigned.
I just gave it to you. The data's coming out. I'm not the only, so this isn't anybody that's been trying to get banked as a crypto person, right, knows what's going on. I mean, choke point 2.0, if you wanted to start a bank, if you wanted to do something in crypto, you couldn't get banked. Think about if you were a crypto business, you're starting your business and all of a sudden your bank phones you up and says, we can't have you as a business customer. Think about that. That's unconstitutional. And guess what? The Fed agreed to it. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's there and everybody knows it's there. And in crypto land, this is common knowledge. And then you look at, Sachs is a part of Trump's administration or cabinet. They all know this, right? Mark Andreessen knows this. Elon Musk knows this. The cool kids in the room don't know this. Do you want to hang out with the cool kids, or do we want to talk to the kid that doesn't even know there's a midterm on today? And then basically ask the question, why doesn't Joe know that there's a midterm? I don't care. Let's make money. What does this mean? Right? It means Trump's going to get in. And in the first 100 days, or even the first day, there's going to be massive executive orders that are going to empower the crypto industry. Right? It's no longer a scam. I'm sorry, Jamie Dimon. It's not a scam. Right? Trump says it's digital gold. Right? You see countries are going to come and be forced in to have a part of their treasury reserve. Danny, whether or not you care about this, whether or not you want to trade in this or invest in it, I don't care. But that's what's happening. You know what I mean?
So this will create a halo effect outside of Bitcoin. This won't just be a tailwind for Bitcoin. It'll also be a tailwind for other cryptos as well. Correct?
It will, but what it really does is when you go back to the context of what the internet was, and Al Gore gets a bad rap, but he made it for public. But the internet was developed originally as a backup communication system in case of a nuclear war. And it was developed in the 50s. And I'm being very crude and simplistic, right?
Right.
It was never designed to be the backbone of the global digital economy. It was never designed. There are too many mistakes, the double spend problem, what have you, okay? Blockchain or Satoshi Nakamoto's is Bitcoin, but when you take blockchain to its extreme, you get me, right? It is going to be the new internet. This is going to allow massive productivity growth, right? They are going to unleash it. So if you have for example, there's a company called Beyond, okay? And it competes against Wayfair. And their former CEO, Patrick Bryan, he's not everybody's cup of tea. Let me just say it that way. But what Patrick did, last halving cycle, is, and to be clear, I am not advocating to buy this stock. All right, for your listeners. All right, please, I am not advocating. But what he did was he went and he basically bought and seeded about 19, I say 15 to 19 blockchain companies that are sitting on the balance sheet of this company at zero valuation. One of those companies is T0. Okay, and T0 is and what Patrick did is he basically went out and bought the old economy in the financial services, like in the old exchange, right? He had Speed Route, okay, and it was back office, right? It was an ATS, right? They bought it, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to build the blockchain on top of it, right? And the reason why that is that in 1970, right, after what's called the paper crisis in the 1960s, right, we overlaid and introduced computers into the system, okay, to clear trades. And instead of having pure peer-to-peer trading or clearing, we developed these things called DTC, right? And what that did was you were trading stocks and bonds, and what you got was a certificate for a right to own the stock or the bond. That system has never been reconciled. Why is that important? Because when you look at GameStop and AMC and these companies that have short interests that are greater than the theoretical shares outstanding, it proves that maybe more rights to the stock were issued than the actual number of shares. And what I would say to you is that go check the Supreme Court case of Dole Pineapple. This is known. It's a dirty story. It's the unwritten story, right? T0 solves that problem. T0 is half owned, or owned 49% by ICE. ICE is the New York Stock Exchange. T0 is run by a guy named David Goon. David Goon was and ICE were the guys that introduced commodity trading into the mainstream. I'm old enough to remember Canadian going down to New York and having Goldman pitch commodities, and everybody was like, oh my God, right? Jeremy Grantham came out with, you got to have commodities in your portfolio because it increases the the Sharpe ratio, right? What did ICE do? It introduced platform trading and trading in commodities to institutional investors, right? T0 was sitting there with the platform ready to go. Genslinger has in his SEC regime has not provided clear rules so that companies, private or public, know whether or not, if they basically list on this exchange, whether or not they will be sued or not by the SEC. There are not clues. But what I'm saying to you, Danny, is this technology already exists. This platform already exists. It's owned by the New York Stock Exchange. It's been there for 4 years.
Right.
And you're asking me what are the ramifications of Choke Point 2.0? Why hasn't it been rolled out?
Does this lay the groundwork, though, for a CBDC down the line? Because this is the concern of many people skeptical of crypto, is that it's essentially a way to get CBDCs spread.
No, I think you're missing. I think I just wrote a piece that you can go on to my Dr. J Strategy Twitter. I just wrote a piece, and really, I think you got to look at it differently. Crypto is the solution to our problem. And the reason why I say that is, and this is another big simplification, right? But bear with me, is, okay, Danny, you and I get together and we want to open up a digital, we go to CoinSquare or whatever, and we open up a digital wallet, right? And we drop in $1,000. And then we go through AML KYC, right? And then 3 days later, they come back to you and say, you can now do whatever you want to do with that, right? Go onto the platform, have fun, right? Well, in that 3 days while you're going through AML KYC, what is also happening is your $1,000 is being changed from a fiat form to a blockchain form, or what we would call a stablecoin. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then from that stablecoin, you are going to make a decision to take $500 and buy Bitcoin and $500 to buy Ether. Okay? What they want to do is they want to make sure that stable coins have the same rules as a money market fund, because it's a stable coin, which means it has to be backed by US dollars or short-term treasuries. Okay? Now think about this. Bitcoin goes and becomes this largest digital gold, 17 trillion, which is what Trump is talking about, right? And it becomes pervasive and everybody owns it. Demand for stable coins goes through the roof. What does that do? It increases demand for what?
Treasuries.
US treasuries. Dude, we've just recreated a petrodollar system. It's not, no. They wake up, guys. This is Paul Ryan wrote about this in, I think, June of last year. This is what they're talking about, right? Think about it.
But
right?
will the volume be enough? Will the volume be enough coming in from these transactions to subsidize treasuries? Will it be enough volume?
We'll see, won't we? Right? But what happens when stablecoin, the legislation, so this is where, and I think when you think about it, what happens when digitization or the blockchain takes off, and for using Bitcoin, really that is a implicit statement on stable coins, which is an implicit statement on US dollars and treasuries. The US dollar continues to be the medium of exchange of the global economy. It's over, dude. It's over. Why would you, going back to your previous question, why would you want to have a CBD? Right? All of a sudden, dollar hegemony continues for another century, dude. It's over. And Paul Ryan, it's not me. Read Paul Ryan's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in the middle of June last year. Right? Why is Howard Lutnick of Cantor taking down 5% of Tether? Why is Loomis, the senator, having ready to go a legislation for stable coins that's basically going to make it regulated like a money market fund? It's a stable coin. And that's the bridge into crypto. Hey, you do the math, right? I led the horse to water. But what I would say to you is, although it may sound profound, the smart kids in the class at the back of the room are talking about this, dude. Like this is common knowledge, right? So what happens if Bitcoin goes to 1 million? Trump's on record saying this is a solution to our debt problems. There are really smart people talking about this is exactly the same as introducing the petrodollar currency back in the 70s, right? When you go to the Saudis and you sit there and say you can trade oil in dollars as long as you recycle it back into US treasuries. If that was the case and you asked me, will it be enough? Dude, I don't know. But if Bitcoin goes to 1 million, a sailor says, right? Or Eric Trump says, or, if it goes to 13 trillion by if it goes and becomes the definitive store of value, could it?
If it goes to 1 million, yeah, that's a big, that's still a long ways out from where we are today.
Sure. But what happens let's stand back. Look at what's happening in El Salvador. There is talk all over the place of countries are embracing it. So here's the thing, and you're seeing smart people, smart finance professors talking about this. When Nixon closed the gold window, the average growth in money supply since then has been somewhere between 8 to 10% a year. What is the only thing recently that's outperformed all of this, right? Bitcoin. What's the second? NASDAQ 100. S&P 500 doesn't do it, right? And then I say to you, Danny, look at rates in China and then look at M1 growth. M1 growth in China is about to turn positive. I would say give it a couple of more months, right? China's going to have to reflate, right? The Fed is going to have to cut, continue to cut. Now, maybe they slow down, but think about it. If I sat there and said to you, after the noise that we've heard for the last 2 months, that the CPI was going to come in and it was going to come in one tenth of a beep lower than, instead of 30 beeps, it's coming in at 20 beeps, but yet it's all generated by shelter, which is what it's been done all year. And rates would drop like a stone. And then the dude would get on TV and say, guess what? Interest rate cuts by the Fed have dramatically changed. They're now going to start cutting. Really? Really? And you get paid? People listen to you? People give you money? Are you kidding me? Really? Come on, man. This is take the long view and embrace the noise, and I become a time arbiter. So your question is, and it's mathematically speaking, yes, there could be enough demand. Will it happen? I don't know, but it would be akin to you asking me in 73, will the petrodollar, first off, you wouldn't believe me when I said Kissinger cut a deal with the Arabs to basically ensure that the US dollar was going to be the medium of exchange of oil. And then the deal was also that they were going to recycle that into treasuries. You wouldn't believe me in 73 if I told you that. Would you? No.
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. Right? It came out after the fact. Right? So when I look at, this goes down to, as a researcher, you ask the question why. For me, I went deep when Paul Ryan, who is not a fan of Trump, but Paul Ryan is from Wisconsin and is very close to Mark Andreessen. And Mark Andreessen is the unpaid intern of Doge, which he's typically the spokesman. I would suggest everybody go and listen to Mark Andreessen's interview with Stanford University at the Hoover Institute that just released. The smart kids know what's going on, my friend.
What's going to be the extent, in your view, of Doge's cutting? Because it's not an actual department; it's more like a consulting arm to the executive branch. What do you see coming out of Doge? Will it be significant?
Well, Mark said it out loud, and the table is being set. There was the Chevron decision was made last year by the Supreme Court, striking down how the administrative state has been implementing policy since the 80s. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm gonna bastardize this. I'm gonna do my attempt. The way the things went down was the fact that if there was a gray area where it wasn't clear, okay, of that there was a law or there wasn't a law, then the department within the government could make up the rules of the game. And nobody could question that. You tracking with me?
Yep.
Right? The Supreme Court said you do not have the constitutional right to do that. Okay? All Doge has to do is say, all we're doing is we're using the Chevron rule to get our administrative state back into line and constitutionally consistent. They're going to use constitutional law to drop the economic atomic bomb on Washington. So when people say, are the government, are the politicians not going to be able to do it? They're going to push back. I sit there and Andreessen's absolutely right. And when this came out, I was banging pots and pans. Of course, 99.9% of the world is completely oblivious to this. All they have to do is sit there going, we're shutting this down because it's unconstitutional. And what's the Congress going to do? It's unconstitutional. That's their card.
It's beyond their scope.
It's beyond their scope. They just dropped a tactical nuclear bomb on the administrative state. And Andreessen just said it. It's been sitting there. You don't think Elon knows this? That's Vivek. Vivek is a really, really, really smart lawyer, really smart guy. They know this. You have no clue what they're going to do. But what I will say is first off, never bet against Elon. Two, listen to what he is saying. And let's look at what he did with Twitter. What is his philosophy about doing restructuring? cut way too much and then add back. So my call is they're saying 2T by July 4th, 26. Wall Street says they're not going to be successful. And they're using history as their guide. And what I say to you is why they're wrong and why the research is sloppy is because Wall Street isn't taking into consideration the Chevron decision by the Supreme Court of the United States, which gives Doge a tactical nuclear bomb to blow up the administrative state. And Andreessen talked about it at Stanford the other day. They've got air cover. They've got Supreme Court air cover. That's all they have to do, dude. All they're going to do is go through and say who's put in laws, who's put in regulations, who's done this, who's done that. That is not constitutional, that there is not a law that has been approved by has gone through. Remember Schoolhouse Rock when we were a kid? Remember that? That has not gone through the normal rules and become a law and has been blessed by the Congress and has been signed off by the president. Anything that's in the administrative state since the 80s is on the table. Now I give that to you and say, what the heck is Elon and Vivek going to do? Well, I would not. I'm voting with Elon. They know exactly what they're doing. They're really stinking smart. Now they got the Supreme Court backing. You tell me with that. How much can they cut out of I think 2 trillion is too low.
Wasn't there a tweet by Elon saying that 2 trillion may have been a bit too bombastic?
No, I don't know. I mean, where we go at
maybe just setting expectations. Yeah. Hey guys, quick pause. As you know, we are big proponents of physical gold and silver on this channel. However, the conundrum often arises: where do you put it? Do you put it in an above ground safe where it becomes a target for burglars, intruders, etc., or do you bury it underground? This is where Dirty Man's Safe comes in. This is a very simplified solution if you want to bury your gold or silver or actually any valuables underground, whether it be alternative car keys, house keys, paperwork, legal documents, anything that's important to you. You can put in this bad boy right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at how it works. All right, so you're going to start off by digging a hole underground, sticking the tubular module in with the safe inside. You bury your valuables, and then whenever you want to extract it, boom, there it is. There's a string attachment. You just pull it out. Bada bing, bada boom. Check it out here. You have 3 different sizes: the girl safe, the man safe, and the old man safe, depending on how much you want to store in this thing. It's all about distribution. You want to diversify where you put your valuables. You don't want to just put them all in one place. And for more information, also click the link down below. All right, guys, let's get back to the video. Fascinating discussion here, Jim. I want to shift things over really quick over to your neck of the woods in Canada.
Yeah.
You are in a very interesting position here. You do have both a Canadian as well as an American background, with the recent talks about adding Canada as a 51st state from Trump. Whether you take it seriously or not, what do you think is the rationale behind just putting that out there into the ethos from Trump?
Okay, so let's go back to facts, right? Council of Foreign Relations, Sharon O'Neill came out with a provocative book a couple of years ago called The Globalization Myth. Okay. And what she basically says, and there's wonderful tapes on YouTube about this, and the book is a must read. So this is where I'm taking it. But really, the only country in the world or the only region in the world that talks about globalization is North America, because we're not integrated. Okay. That's CFR talking. Right. And what they're talking about is a fortress North America where we become much more integrated, like Asia or Europe. All right. Over the years, Canada and the United States have become less integrated, not more. OK, so this has been talked about for an excessive period of time. That's one. 2, let's just look at basic facts. OK, I was in grad school. I got a very prestigious summer job 3 years in a row with Imperial Oil in their treasury department, okay, modeling and all that type of stuff, right? Imperial Oil is 70% of Imperial Oil is owned by ExxonMobil. Okay? So let me just put it to you this way. The oil patch is already owned by the Americans. Okay? And there was this thing called the proportionality clause in the free trade agreement signed by Ron Enders. And don't ask me why I know this, but it's there, where it basically says that over a period of time, look, the proportion of natural resources going to the United States from Canada is fixed. Okay? What the first free trade agreement was about was a continental energy plan. Okay? 2, let's go 3. You guys have, and right, my dad's American, lived in the States for 25 years. We up here in Canada, they were not allowed to basically build pipelines or build refining capacities to basically ship oil to another customer other than the United States. Are you following me?
Yep.
And there is a massive cohort up here that has been saying, why are we so dependent on the United States? And the reason why that is, Danny, is because the refining capacity in the United States cannot refine sweet crude.
You've got for the audience, you've got sweet crude and heavy sour.
Right, and you need to mix the two together to refine. Because Canada cannot send their oil to other markets, you guys get Canadian oil at a massive discount. All right? That is fact. All right? So next step. If you take out that situation of trade of crude oil to the United States in terms of trade balances, all right? The United States has a trade surplus with Canada, not a deficit. Okay, dude? Dude, I know you're sitting there at the poker table with a 3 and a 6 offsuit. Do you understand? Google this. Put it into ChatGPT. So what the heck is Trump doing? We buy more stuff from you than you from us. The only thing you buy from us is sour crude. And guess what, dude? You need it. So bring it on. Let's go. Let's go. You don't want to buy from Canada? Buy from Venezuela or Iran, okay? So I'm being blunt, but let's play poker, right? Let me ask you, you think Trump knows this?
Of course he does.
Of course he does. So what the hell is Trump doing? Right? We need to be integrated. That's the Council of Foreign Relations. He understands what's happening. But let me give you a clue. This is my interpretation. There is regulatory capture up here. As I'm looking at you right now, I'm staring at a building with the Toronto Dominion logo on it. I worked for a Warren Buffett-owned bank for almost 20 years in the United States. It's M&T Bank. Okay, it's really funny. This weekend when the Ravens play the Bills, the M&T Bank is the only company in the United States that explicitly advertises with an NFL team, which is M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. And if you go to Highmark Stadium, the number one advertiser in there other than Highmark is M&T Bank. And the only reason M&T Bank wasn't advertising the Bills is because Ralph Wilson didn't want anybody else to have the naming rights, okay? So, but here's the point. I've gone through the world. I've gone through my professional career and what we did to grow M&T Bank is we did mergers and acquisitions. We did like eight deals. And we would get calls. We would get calls to come in and evaluate a situation. Next time you watch the Boston Bruins play hockey in its Bank North Stadium, that's TD Bank North, okay? TD Bank overpaid for that asset, okay? And the reason why they could overpay for that asset is because they are regulatory protected up here and they can make super rents up here in Canada. And they can take that excess capacity and excess capital and take it down to the United States and overpay for assets. Isn't that an interesting narrative? Now they get taken, a TD gets taken out on a de minimis claim of AML KYC. And it's not the bill that they got paid, like they got charged. It's the fact that they're in the penalty box. They are not going to be able to participate in the roll-up of the regional banks that are all toxic because of Powell raising rates from 0 to 5. That hasn't been solved. Elizabeth Warren is going to eventually shuffle off the Buffalo, and there's going to be major M&A activity in regional banks where you're going to be able to take out a bank, fire people, and close branches. And the Canadian banks aren't going to be able to participate in that. Maybe what Mr. Trump is talking about is reciprocity. Up here, this Rogers, which is the naming rights of the Sky Dome, right, is protected from AT&T. Telestat, you've got all of these big telecommunications. So you've got the telecommunication industry, and you've got the financial services industries that have been protected, that are not on a level playing field with the United States. Maybe if you talk about a fully integrated economy, free flow of labor, right? I mean, maybe that's what's up. Maybe that's what's up. What I do know, Danny, it's not for cheese in Wisconsin coming across the border, right, relative to the Quebec cheese. It's something big. And what I'm trying to say to you is, it's not energy, because that was dealt with Reagan and Mulroney in the 80s with the first free trade agreement. And the fact that our structure is such that up here, it would take us a period. If Trump wants to play this card, okay, then let's just raise tariffs on oil, and then let's build the pipelines and the refineries up here. Look at, dude, we're not capturing any margin up here with the sour oil. We're shipping it down to you guys. You guys are getting all the margin. And you guys want to play that card? You really got, this is, people, you really think we're that stupid up here? Hey, dude, our standard of living is already dropping because of Trudeau. We have to go through structural adjustment up here to survive. Mark Andreessen is right. You do not want to look like Canada. He said it at Stanford. We all know this. So we're going to go through massive structural adjustment up here. Let's build pipelines and refineries, and let's sell to everybody else in the world. And if the United States wants to sell and buy oil from Venezuela, God bless them. Let's play that card. Now, let me ask you a question. Why isn't somebody going down to Mar-a-Lago and dropping that? Come on, Mr. Trump, let's go. You want to play that card? Let's go.
Do you see it going that far?
Beg your pardon?
Do you see it going that far eventually?
No, but I think that's the data, and I think cooler. I think Mr. Trump understands this. What I'm trying to say to you is and I gave you the example of the deregulation and the regulatory capture up here. There is something else other than oil, right? And you can tell by the way that Danielle Smith, who is a wonderful, smart premier of Alberta, she understands this.
Do they want the North Pole? Do they want the North Pole alongside with Greenland? Because Russia currently occupies the other half of the North Pole. Could it be a play geopolitically in that way?
Oh, no, I think what's happening is you guys are finally waking up and realizing about the capture that if you want the progressive left, let me be blunt, the progressive left has stunted your evolution. And this is about control of the seas. This is a matter of national security for the United States. And you guys have been asleep at the wheel since Obama got in. Okay? That's a bigger risk to the US dollar and the US Treasury. You guys got the lead. You guys think that it's ordained that you guys will have the lead. And guess what? History says you're going to fall just like every other republic. And you guys better wake up and smell the coffee. I think Mr. Trump understands that. I am not questioning what Mr. Trump is doing. And far be it from me to sit there and say that I'd go down to Mar-a-Lago and put my big boy pants on and threaten Mr. Trump. I am not saying that. I mean, this is for theatrics. What I am saying is, guys, look at what's happening. Stop turning on mainstream media. There's a lot, yeah. So what is Trump worried about? Trump is worried about everybody's asleep at the switch because Russia and China has taken over the North Pole. Are you guys going to wake up for that fact yet?
Do you see the United States buying Greenland?
I don't know. I mean, if Greenland wants to join, that's up to them. That's out of my pay grade. But I don't disagree. I mean, do not underestimate Mr. Trump. Do not think that what he is talking about has been well thought out. Just like I was saying to you about the 51st state. And Mr. Trump is moderate. All Mr. Trump is amplifying in his own unique way is what the Council of Foreign Relations has been talking about. I gave you the book. Is the Council of Foreign Relations extreme? I say no. Right?
Was that where the North was that where the idea for a North American Union came from back in 2006? I don't know if you remember this, but there was this entire concept of a North American Union containing Canada, United States, and Mexico, supplanted with a Namero currency. Yes. Is that the same?
It's the same concept, but we've got to wake up and smell the coffee. So what I had been saying up here, right, and writing about, is the fact that we got to get up. We got to realize that the game has changed. And so in the 1960s, there's a gentleman his name was Paul Martin Sr. He went down to Texas and he negotiated what was called the North American Auto Pact with Lyndon Johnson, who was the vice president. And the economies became very integrated. We've done this before, but as the auto industry has been less and less pervasive or important in economic growth, right? The economies have become less and less integrated. Like, an aspirin, and this is I'm stealing the Council of Foreign Relations, that's their pitch. They're sitting going, like, if an aspirin is made by the biotech industry in Montreal, it should be able to be shipped down to Vermont tariff-free. I mean, like, can we get? It's 2025. Will you give up sovereignty? No. Why would you give up sovereignty? Right? We got 2 votes. Right? Why would you vote? Why would you give up vote? Why would you give up a 2 votes? A super voting power. Right? We never vote against the United States, and when the majority of time. Right? So you don't want to give up the sovereignty. Right? Do you want to have? I mean. Do you want to have a sovereign currency? Yeah, I think the point is that if the fuselage of an airplane is put together in Mexico and then it gets put on a KSU CNR train and it goes into the southern United States and it gets dropped off at a Pratt & Whitney manufacturing facility and engines are put on it, and then it gets put back on a train and it goes back up to Montreal, and then the final electronics gets input into it. The flow of that product should be able to go from Mexico to from the United States to Canada, free flow, and not have to go through all of this border and tariff stuff. There should be a free flow of assets going back and forth. And then what we do is we sit down. If the Americans want to onshore chip manufacturing, okay, which is right, because of securities, then should Canada do the testing and packaging of that? Like, what part of the supply chain can we do? And this is the basic question that the Council of Foreign Relations and O'Brien they bring up. There should be an integrated supply chain, and let's figure out what the United States wants to do, right? And where can Canada fit in and Mexico fit in to make these products, right? That's what we're talking about. And it's no different than what's happening in Europe or in Asia. It's not, it's just catching up to these other, it's called regionalization, not globalization, right? And so what Mr. Trump is doing is what the CFR talked about. It's talked about previously. It needs to get done. I've been advocating for it. I don't disagree with it. I think the tariffs right? Don't, forget about the flash grenade. Like, forget about the flash. It's the signal for the noise. I just gave you why this whole argument is specious. You guys already have a trade surplus with us, right? And if you guys don't want our oil, then we would be very happy to basically build pipelines and refining capacity so that we could send our products elsewhere in the world and we could get the margins. Okay?
Is the European Union a success in your mind?
No. But it was never designed to be a success. I had dinner a decade and a half ago in North Hatley with Mundell. Right? He Canadian. He got the Nobel Prize for it. Everybody knows it's not supposed to be successful. Right? Everybody knows. It's like, so no, it's a joke. But that's okay. Right? But I mean, the beautiful thing about and this is where it goes with Germany is, people are finally waking up to the fact that, Germany arbed the EU. Right? I mean, and this was brought to light in, the Greece crisis, when they basically, when basically what happened is you treated Greek sovereign debt the same way that you treated German sovereign debt, and you could hold it to achieve your compliance with the Maastricht Treaty. And what happened when Greece went bankrupt? All the northern banks got smoked. So the IMF deal that they had was jammed down their throat so that they couldn't become a diversified economy was a bailout of the German banks. Everybody knows that.
So what could make the North American Union, for lack of a better term, more successful than the European Union? Because we're on this topic of regionalization. What's the differing factor between the two?
We've done it before with the auto industry. We completely and totally understand it with the oil industry. Let's just cut to the chase and make sure that there is a free flow of funds, a free flow of products and labor across the border. Like, why do I have to get a green card? I want to come down and compete against you guys. Right? Come on, let's go. Right? You guys are protected. Right? I want to come in. And I say that facetiously. I mean, this is 20 years in the States. My dad grew up in Brooklyn, right? I am a direct descendant of Elizabeth Seton. Okay? My daughter's middle name is Seton. Ever heard of Seton Hall? That's my family. I'm more American than tons of you guys, but I've got a Canadian lineage, and I also have an English lineage. That's why it's so bizarre about when you talk about Elon Musk. He's a Commonwealth. Like, I totally get what he's talking about. He spent a couple of years in Canada. He's got, he's got ancestries in the UK. He's from South America. He's part of the Commonwealth. He's a moderate Democrat. That's what when I lived in DC, I was viewed as a moderate Democrat. I totally get what he's talking about. And so let's just be real about this. And then I sit there and go, well, what does that mean? Well, that means, guess what? The banks up here can no longer be protected. The telecommunications industry can no longer be protected. What are we going to do about healthcare? Right? Because you guys don't have healthcare, we have healthcare. What are we going to do? Like, there's big issues that have to be worked through. You get my drift? But on the surface, I think there are enough smart people that understand the nuances of the two countries. You get my drift? To make this work. I mean, ExxonMobil owns 70% of Imperial Oil. Last cycle, there was this company called Potash of Saskatchewan, Potash, right? Where did they move their head office to? Chicago. It's already there, man. How do we do it? What do we work on? To me, it's in this new innovative world, like, I want this to happen because one of the best universities for innovation up here is the University of Waterloo. You go do computer science, and what do? You go to Silicon Valley. Why? Because there's no innovation here. Hey, dude, we developed. Vladik Buterin is Toronto. He grew up in Toronto. Ethereum was invented in Toronto. Okay? This was invented by research in motion. You get my drift?
Do you think Trump sees it that way as well? Is Toronto too big of a city to be Canadian? I mean, does he want to integrate Canada into the United States in that way? Because you've got Toronto, you've got Montreal, you've got Vancouver, you've got some major cities in Canada. Does Trump want access to those centers of innovation?
Well, there's nothing here. That's the risk. I mean, this is where, dude, you guys are coming. We're backed up against the corner, right? We are a Wolverine backed up against the corner. We have to go through major structural adjustments. Our standard of living is dropping like a stone. Our per capita GDP is about to fall below the OECD average. Why you guys want to threaten somebody that needs to go through major structural change? I don't know, guy. You understand? Because there's a lot of people up here saying, let's shut, I mean, that's the rhetoric. Let's shut them down. Let's go full pain. Let's build the pipelines in the refineries and let Trump buy from Venezuela. Like, and it came out from Jean Chrétien, right? Dude, we invented the special services or special forces with you guys, right? It's called Devil's Brigade. We fought in the world wars way before you guys got into it. Pound per pound, we will fight, right? Just look at hockey, okay? Do not discount Canadians. We are this mild-mannered people. But if you push us too far, we are willing to take the pain. Are you guys willing to buy your oil from Venezuela? Because I'm telling you, that's where we are at the boiling point.
Is there any connection between what Musk is trying to pull over in the UK with Keir Starmer and with Canada? Because Canada is a Commonwealth of the UK. Does what happens in UK politics affect Canada?
Well, our head of state is the crown, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you've got to be clear about this when the governor general talks. She says she reports to the crown.
Correct.
Not the king. And she'll sit there and say it ad nauseum. Our head of state is the crown. Full stop.
What's the difference between the crown and the king?
Because the crown is the institution. Charles is just, and I like Charles and I like the royal family. I'm a monarchist, right? So don't get me wrong, right? There are things I like about being up here, and I miss a lot of the stuff in the States, okay? But you know, it go back to the abdication. This is bigger than Charles. It's not about Charles, it's about the crown. It's about the institution. Okay? It's about what is the crown? If you think about it, the crown is the remnants of the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And all that embraces that. Canada is that bridge between the United States and England. When you think about it, right? In the United Kingdom, right? Right? Royal Bank of Canada, right? You know what I mean? We are a British parliamentary system. Right? Mark Carney went from the Bank of Canada to become the head of the Bank of England. There is a lot of we are a culture and a society steeped in our United Kingdom roots and that are embraced. Okay, and I want to amplify that, right? But I think what is happening in the United Kingdom is what is happening in the United States, what's going to happen in the United States. And I just think what's happening is all Musk is doing is he's laying bare the history for everybody to see and letting us make the decision as opposed to redacting everything, right? So how, for example, when the Labor Party sits there and says that there is political interference, well, dude, they sent over 100 people to help the Democrats. Isn't that electric? I mean, that just Google that. Isn't that election interference? I don't know. To me, it is. So I think all he's doing is it's a phase of transparency. And then in a democracy, and in a world where we're allowed to have a conversation like we're doing, right? Democracies will find it in society and the United Kingdom, when they're given the free information, full information, they will come up and decide what they want to do as a democracy. Just like you will when Kash Patel gets in and he unloads and everything becomes fully transparent. As a democracy, you guys will figure out what you're going to do and you will come to the right decision, right? Because that's what a democracy does. Same thing up here, right? Full transparency, right? But what we're going through in this process is, all I'm saying to you is, look, dude, the Fed was involved in unbanking companies and they shouldn't have. That's out there, full information now. The guy resigned, right? You guys can figure out what you want to do. I lived in the United States. My father was American. I had a green card. I never thought once of voting illegally in a U.S. election. I am a political junkie, right? But I never thought about overstepping that bound, because voting, like, when are you guys going to put in voter ID?
It's a good question.
Like, when are you guys, I mean, up here, you got to show your driver's license. Why is that? Right? I mean, when are you guys going to get with the program? Right? You guys have the best economy in the world. This is the American dream. And you guys are screwing it up. And that's from an American Canadian. It's like what FDR said when he came up during World War II and he gave a speech to the Parliament. And William Lyon Mackenzie, who was the Prime Minister before, he said, we gave you all the pomps and circumstance of a leader, a global leader, of the important person that you are. And FDR said, dude, I'm family. We're family. We are family. I mean, you ever watch that Curse of Oak Island, right, on TV, right, where these guys are drilling for buried treasure on an island in New Brunswick? FDR used to go up as a kid in summer vacation and search for buried treasure in New Brunswick, right? So I am not scared about it. I am happy to compete. You guys don't scare me. I've worked with you guys for 20 years. I'm American. We're family. You want to get rid of some of the regulatory? Fine. If I want to come down and compete in New York, let's bring it. Right? Let's go. And if you guys want to trade, sit there and I'm saying to you honestly, we're in a world of hurt up here, man. You guys are, we're backed into the corner and we're a rabid Wolverine. And if you guys want to sit there and risk us, and basically there's a huge cohort of people saying, let's just shut the energy down and let's diversify and let's sell it to the world and you guys can deal with Iran and Venezuela.
I've heard the same thing from a number of my other Canadian friends too, that I never thought would be this contentious about it. It's like you said here, Jim, you guys are very nice people, but when it comes down to it, you can show your fangs.
Look at hockey. We like fighting. Okay? Right? Go look at one of the only special forces that SEAL Team 6 or 8, it's called Joint Task Force 2, Canadians. We built the special forces with you guys. Okay? Go watch Devil's Brigade with William Holden. Right? And that's the point I'm trying, I don't think it's there, but and Jean Chrétien came out. Don't think that we will not roll up our sleeves and sit there and take it. Like, you guys want to, this is the point I would make to Mr. Trump. Don't play us as fools, dude.
Right. So you are a self-acclaimed political junkie and you are Canadian. So I've got to ask you this. Where do you see the prime ministership of Canada going? You have Trudeau out, but you still need to nominate a new Liberal nominee. On the Conservative side, it appears to be Pierre Poilievre, I believe his name.
Pierre Poilievre,
Correct.
He's a lifetime politician. Yes, sir.
And then you have Mark Carney as a potential on the Liberal side. What do you make of the current landscape right now in Canadian politics?
So here's the conversation, right? We typically, like, whether it's left of center or right of center, right? We typically are centrist, but our center is typically a little bit left of where you guys are. Like I said, I am a moderate Democrat in Washington, D.C., and up here I would be a small c conservative. Okay? We're going to get back to that. But here's the history. Typically, a party gets 10 years or so into power, and then they get kicked out. All right? So it's time for the conservatives to take control. And what you hear up here is every time you have a pivot. Okay, so when Brian Mulroney left and had his 10 years, there was a woman named Kim Campbell that replaced Brian Mulroney, resigned. They had an election. Kim Campbell was the first female, like she was a prime minister for like 4 months, and then the conservatives got smoked. Same thing happened when the Liberals came in for 10 years, and then it was John Turner. Did you get my drift? So the question is, to me, is why would Mark Carney take risk his political career when he's about to get absolutely eviscerated in the polls? Mark Carney went on Jon Stewart and said that he's an outsider. That's gaslighting. I mean,
for those who may not know, Mark Carney was the former head of the Bank of Canada as well as the Bank of England. So he is very, very entrenched.
Goldman Sachs, Harvard, Oxford, World Economic Forum, do a dive on his wife, deep dive on his wife, and he played that. Now, down here, you guys go yuck, yuck, yuck. Up here, we just go, OMG. Right? I live in Toronto. I live in downtown Toronto, which is akin to the Upper East Side in Manhattan. I live in the most progressive left riding in the country. Do you understand? I live in the bourgeois socialist area of the city. The Liberals, there is a riding called St. Paul's, which is the most liberal riding in the country. Right next door to Krista Friedland's riding, which is in Rosedale. They had an election, and the Liberal Party lost, and the Conservatives got in. Right? Think about Trudeau's stance with regard to Hamas in Israel, and a lot of these ridings that I'm talking to you about are highly Jewish, like 40 to 60 to 70% Jew, that are highly committed to Israel in the Judeo-Christian way of life. Right? So when you have that, the thing I say to you, Danny, is why would Mark Carney do this? I don't know. I would advise them not to do it. But here's what they're doing up here, which is to me bizarre. And let's use James Carville as an example. In the post-mortem, James Carville went really hard at the Democratic Party and talked about the fact that identity politics didn't work. The median voter, what is voting about is this election is about them. Right? And that's what Harris missed. I am paraphrasing Mr. Carville, but he nailed it, right? So what are they doing up here? Ooh, I'm the anti-Trump, right? Ooh, Poilievre is Trump. And people don't realize, look, our standard of living is dropping like a stone.
Yeah. He's not with it.
It's the economy, stupid. You get my drift? Dude, we used to be in the top quartile of per capita GDP. We're dropping like a stone. Everybody feels it, right? So you think people are going to buy you're going to buy Captain Carbon Tax? is going to come in when the carbon tax basically increased inflation. And, you know, when are the liberals going to figure out that, and this is, you know, Mr. Trump gets this, and we did, and there's a huge cohort. The number one foundational thing you need to have an efficient and productive and competitive manufacturing base is cheap natural gas. Dude, we got tons of it. We got tons of it in Newfoundland. We've got natural gas and oil all over the place that has not been developed. We want to develop it. We want to ship it to the world. We want to ship our LNG to India and Europe. We want to ship our gasoline to anywhere but the United States. Let's bring it on. Let's go. Because, dude, the standard of living here is dropping so far. What the hell else are we going to do? And your move is to bring in Captain Carbon Tax? That's your move. So my point to you is, when we talk, why the heck is he doing this? Mr. Carney is a very smart man. Do you understand that? He is a very well-connected man. He has an impressive CV. He went to Oxford on a Commonwealth scholarship, full ride. He graduated from Nuffield College. Okay? He's a, look at, I know who this dude is. He's a goalie. He went to Harvard. His dad was a principal in Northern Alberta. This guy is very cerebral. Okay? Do not underestimate him. But even after I've given you all that information that he knows, he still wants to be the leader of the Liberal Party and possibly be the prime minister for a very short period of time when the probabilities stack up against him. Do you get my drift? Why would he do that? Danny, why would he do that is the question. And I don't know. I listened to, Jon Stewart sit there and do the shucky green with them, which makes me sick.
Is this his way?
That is the question that Jon Stewart should have asked him bluntly.
Is this his way of getting his name out there in anticipation that the pendulum will swing back eventually at some other point in time? He may anticipate losing this time around, but he does introduce himself on a grand scale to Canadians.
Everybody knows him. And on an equivalent basis, we are paying $6 a gallon for gasoline up here. And we export tons of gasoline. We export more. We don't refine. Think about that. Okay, it's $1.54. It's $1.54 a liter up here in Toronto. Times it by 4.5 and convert it. Okay. People are fed up with the virtue signaling progressive left up here. This goes back to the Overton window. I just don't think that Mr. Carney, as impressive as he is, okay, can pull off what Ms. Harris, who grew up in Montreal, by the way, right, could pull off. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to be able to sit there when he was an advisor to the Liberal Party, when he was an advisor to the Labour Party, and he was the king of climate change. Look at, statistically speaking, of course he has the probability of winning. Of course he does. But don't you think, given what I've said to you, that the probability of him winning is de minimis?
Yeah.
I mean, my professional opinion is, looking as a forecaster, I don't know why he's doing it. He's an impressive man. He's got a wonderful career. He doesn't need this. You understand? He doesn't need this. He can go and work at the United Nations or go back and work at Brookfield. He doesn't need, and that's what I don't understand. As impressive of this man is, and look at, I am a big fan of him, right? So don't get me wrong, right? But I'm sitting there looking at this as an objective investor, and the number one thing you do is you check your biases at the door. Right. The number two thing you do, if you've noticed, is that what am I doing? I am looking out 5 to 6 quarters and trying to arbitrage time to figure out where will consensus be, because they will not do any work. I'm not complaining about it. I'm saying let's take advantage of it. And when I look at him, I just do not understand why he is taking this risk. I don't get it. I think he should let Krista Friedland take it and let her get just wiped out by the electorate, because I just don't see the Liberal Party being able to pull this off. And I just don't see the tactic of Pierre Poilievre, his orange man, is going to work. I just don't see it. There's too much decline in the standard of living in this country. You get my drift?
Yeah.
And I think he's got like the same thing. I think Tiff Macklin is he's doing what he has to. I will call a spade, and I'll be blunt about it. Like, I think Jay Powell knows exactly, like, and it's reading the room. Go back to Jackson Hole. When Jay Powell's walking around, who's he walking around with? Tiff Macklin. Everything I told you about basic economic theory, Tiff Macklin knows. He's got a PhD. He went to Western. He's a smart man, right? If we sat down with a beer with Tiff Macklin and said, tariffs aren't inflationary, he'd go, yeah. And he'd sit there and go, Newt Wicksell says that, when productivity when the production function shifts, Rstar goes down. And Tiff would go, yeah. Right? So don't discount that these guys they don't know what they're doing. What is the game? What are the political forces? Why are they doing what they're doing? Are they narcissists and they're just doing this because they think that they can do it? I don't know. I just don't know why I don't understand, maybe he thinks this is it, right? He can go do it. He can become prime minister for 6 months. But up here, they're saying, why does Mark Carney want to be Kim Campbell? That's the joke. Kim Campbell was a female prime minister for 4 months and got smoked in the election after Brian Mulroney left. Why does Mark Carney want to be Kim Campbell? If I was a writer for Jon Stewart, I would have taken 30 seconds and actually done some research, as opposed to him putting a cardboard, comparing Pierre Poilievre to Justin Trudeau. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's the essence in how in depth research is done down there. Let's make money on it, my friend.
Yeah, let's do. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation here, Jim. Anything else that you want to talk about that we seemingly didn't get to in this podcast before we close things out?
After all of we talked about, I'm bullish on risk assets. I think they understand what's going on. I really do. I do not lose sleep with Mr. Trump. I don't. I think they know what they're talking about, right? I do. I think they know that this Canada, the United States things will be solved. There are smart people that understand what we're talking about. What we get to do, Danny, what you allow me to do is a platform, and I thank you for this, is to sit there and go, if you would just do some research, an objective research, here's what I found. Now, you may disagree with me. God bless you. Right. And Danny, I do read the comment section after you drop it. And oh my gosh. So anyways, but everything's going to be fine. S&P 7,000, right? Everything's going to be okay. They understand this, right? It's going to, the US is the place to be. Canada needs to come up with a new agreement so that we can coattail on the innovative wave that's happening in the United States. It's all good. We are in a secular bull market. Right, be given by demographics. I think by the end of Trump's second term, the S&P's at 14,000. Bitcoin is on a run. I think it's going to go to about 200,000 this year. I think it's great. I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where we can accumulate significant wealth. Just ignore the newsletter writers and ignore Wall Street that don't do research.
Great stuff here, Jim. Where can people find you to see more?
Go to Dr. J Strategy on X is where I drop everything. My market insights are there for free. Conscious stream of thought. If you follow me on X, you will see that everything that we talked about right here is there, just dropped on a daily basis. We try to basically be objective in the center. That would be, then if you want, or Wellington Altus, Ca is where we're at as well.
Great. We'll have both those links down below. Be sure to check them out, guys. If you got value out of this video, give us a like and comment down below. Go, Jim, go. If you disagreed with any of the points we talked about, do drop a comment. I do read the comments just like Jim. So let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode, and check us out on Substack at capitalcosm.substack.com. Become a paying member and support the channel. Support me continuing this work and interviewing individuals just like Jim. All right, guys. Much ado, and I'll catch you next episode. Bye, y'all.